You know that moment when everything you thought was solid in your life just crumbles in an instant. I used to believe in fairy tale love, the kind where your partner stands by you through thick and thin. I had Daniel, and we were planning our future together. My brother Marcus was getting married, and I was so excited for Daniel to be part of our family celebration. Little did I know that this wedding would become the stage for the most humiliating betrayal of my life. Before I dive into what happened that night, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories. Trust me, you will want to hear how this all unfolded, because what happened next changed everything. I thought I knew about love and betrayal. Daniel and I had been together for a year and a half, and honestly, everything seemed perfect. He was charming, attentive, and always talking about our future together. He would bring me flowers every Friday, remember the smallest details about my day, and made me feel like I was the center of his universe. When my brother Marcus announced his engagement, Daniel was genuinely excited to be part of the family celebration. He even offered to help with wedding preparations, which made my heart swell with pride. The wedding was scheduled for the last weekend of September, and I was beyond excited. This was going to be Daniel's first major family event, and I could not wait to introduce him to my extended family. We spent weeks preparing together. I dragged him shopping for the perfect dress, a beautiful navy blue number that hugged all the right places. We coordinated his tie to match my dress, and I even booked us matching hair and nail appointments. The whole thing felt so couple-like, so permanent. I remember thinking this might be practice for our own wedding someday. But about a week before the wedding, something shifted. Daniel started acting distant in ways I had never seen before. He was constantly on his phone, and whenever I walked into a room, he would quickly flip it face down or angle the screen away from me. When I asked about it, he would brush it off with explanations about work stress or family drama. I tried to rationalize his behavior, telling myself that maybe his job was getting more demanding, or perhaps he was nervous about meeting my extended family. The breaking point came 3 days before the wedding. Daniel had stayed over at my apartment, and the next morning, he rushed out for what he claimed was an early work meeting, leaving his phone behind on my nightstand. I was not the type to snoop through someone's phone, but when it started buzzing with missed calls from an unknown number, I became concerned. When I mentioned the calls to Daniel later that day, his reaction was explosive. He became defensive and agitated, claiming it was a work emergency that I would not understand. His response felt disproportionate to my innocent question, and for the first time in our relationship, I felt like he was lying to me. That is when I started paying closer attention to the details I had been ignoring. Daniel had been working late, more frequently canceling our dinner plans at the last minute, and always had perfectly reasonable explanations that I never questioned. He would say his boss needed him to stay for an urgent project, or that he had to drive his elderly neighbor to the hospital. Looking back, the signs were all there, but I was too trusting to see them. The discovery that changed everything happened during my lunch break the day before the wedding. I was scrolling through Instagram, mindlessly looking at posts from friends and influencers when I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a post from Sophia Daniel's ex-girlfriend. I knew about her from stories Daniel had told me about their relationship, which he claimed had ended amicably over 2 years ago. The post showed an elegant dinner setup at Romano's, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. The caption read, "Perfect evening with someone special," accompanied by heart emojis. At first glance, it seemed like a normal post from someone enjoying a nice dinner. But something in the background caught my eye. There was a man's arm visible in the corner of the photo, wearing a distinctive silver watch that I recognized immediately. It was the Rolex I had given Daniel for his birthday 3 months earlier, engraved with his initials on the back. Next to the watch, I could see the sleeve of a shirt I knew intimately because I had picked it out for him at Nordstrom just last month. My hands started shaking as I screenshot the image and zoomed in to confirm what I was seeing. There was no doubt in my mind that Daniel was the mystery man sharing this romantic dinner with his ex-girlfriend. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my office building, staring at that photo until my vision blurred with tears. I immediately texted Daniel asking about his plans for the evening, trying to give him a chance to tell me the truth. His response came back quickly. Stuck in another late work meeting. Miss you, baby. Cannot wait for tomorrow. The casual lie felt like a second punch to the gut. I realized that not only was he cheating on me, but he was doing it so effortlessly that it made me question how long this had been going on. The rational part of my brain wanted to drive straight to Romano's and confront him in person. But then, I remembered that tomorrow was my brother's wedding day, the most important day of Marcus's life. I could not let my personal drama overshadow his happiness. I made the difficult decision to suppress my rage and hurt, planning to act normal through the wedding and deal with Daniel afterward. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming. I felt stupid for trusting him, angry at his betrayal, and heartbroken that our entire relationship might have been a lie. I woke up on Marcus's wedding day with a heavy heart, but I was determined to focus on my brother's happiness rather than my own pain. The morning started early with hair and makeup appointments for all the bridesmaids. I sat in the salon chair, forcing smiles and participating in the excited chatter about the ceremony, while inside I was dying to scream about what I had discovered. My sister-in-law's friends kept asking about Daniel, wondering if he might propose soon, and each question felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Daniel arrived at my apartment to pick me up, looking devastatingly handsome in his navy suit. He was extra charming that morning, bringing me coffee from my favorite shop and complimenting my appearance with an enthusiasm that now felt calculated. He kept touching my hand and calling me beautiful behavior that would have melted my heart just days earlier. Now it felt like manipulation, like he was overcompensating for his guilt. I found myself analyzing every gesture, every word, wondering if this was how he always acted after spending time with Sophia. The drive to the venue was torture. Daniel tried to make small talk about the wedding, asking about the timeline and whether I was nervous about my maid of honor speech. I responded with short answers, not trusting myself to engage in longer conversations without my hurt showing through. He kept glancing at me sideways, clearly sensing that something was off, but I deflected his questions with comments about pre-wedding jitters and family stress. The venue was absolutely stunning, an outdoor garden setting with white roses and twinkling lights everywhere. As guests began arriving, I threw myself into my role as maid of honor, greeting family members and ensuring everything was running smoothly. Daniel seemed nervous as I introduced him to various relatives, and I noticed he was checking his phone more frequently than usual, stepping away periodically to take what he claimed were work calls. During the ceremony, I stood at the altar watching Marcus and his bride exchange vows about faithfulness, trust, and commitment. The irony was almost too painful to bear. While the bride promised to love Marcus, through good times and bad and sickness and health, I was standing there knowing that the man I thought I would marry someday was probably texting another woman. When Marcus spoke about trust being the foundation of their relationship, I had to bite my lip to keep from crying. The reception began immediately after the ceremony, and Daniel seemed increasingly distracted. He would excuse himself from conversations to answer his phone, always stepping just far enough away that I could not hear what he was saying. My cousin started commenting that he seemed off today, asking if everything was all right with us. I made excuses about work stress and wedding nerves, but internally, I was grateful that other people were noticing his strange behavior because it confirmed I was not imagining things. About halfway through the reception during the dinner service, Daniel approached me with a serious expression. He said he needed to leave early because of a family emergency involving his ex-wife. The lie was so blatant and poorly constructed that I almost laughed out loud. Daniel had never been married, a fact that literally everyone at our table knew because we had discussed it multiple times throughout the evening. When I pointed out this inconsistency, he became flustered and started backtracking, claiming he misspoke and meant his ex-girlfriend needed help with something urgent. I insisted that if there was a real emergency, I should come with him to provide support. Daniel became agitated, saying it was complicated and that I would not understand the situation. His deflection tactics were becoming more obvious by the minute, and I realized this was my opportunity to confront him with what I knew. I suggested we step outside for some privacy, and once we were alone in the garden area of the venue, I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshot of Sophia's Instagram post. The look on Daniel's face when he saw the evidence was one of pure panic, followed quickly by anger. Instead of apologizing or trying to explain, he immediately went on the defensive, claiming I was paranoid and controlling for checking his ex-girlfriend's social media. He tried to gaslight me by suggesting the photo was old or that I was misinterpreting what I was seeing. When I pointed out specific details like his watch and shirt, he became more aggressive, accusing me of spying on him and not trusting him enough to maintain friendships with people from his past. The argument escalated quickly, with Daniel raising his voice and attracting attention from other wedding guests. He stormed off saying I was impossible to deal with and that he was done with this conversation. He left the venue without another word, leaving me standing alone in my bridesmaid dress, humiliated and heartbroken at my brother's wedding reception. I somehow managed to compose myself enough to return to the party. When people asked where Daniel had gone, I made up a story about a family emergency requiring his immediate attention. Marcus could tell something was seriously wrong, but I begged him not to worry about my problems on his wedding day. I spent the rest of the evening putting on a brave face, dancing with my family, and giving my maid of honor speech as planned, all while feeling completely shattered inside. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity that surprised me. Despite the emotional devastation, I knew exactly what needed to happen. I called Daniel around 10 o'clock, ready to officially end our relationship. When he answered, his voice was cold and defensive, showing no remorse for his behavior the night before or acknowledgement of how his actions had affected me. I told him plainly that our relationship was over, that I could not be with someone who lied to me and cheated on me. Daniel's response was aggressive and manipulative. He continued to deny that anything inappropriate had happened with Sophia, claiming they were just catching up as old friends, and that I was overreacting to an innocent dinner. When I pressed him about the romantic setting and the secretive nature of their meeting, he finally admitted that Sophia had reached out to him several months earlier, wanting to reconnect. This revelation opened up more questions about how long he had been lying to me. If Sophia had contacted him months ago, how many other secret meetings had there been? How many of his late work nights had actually been spent with her? The more he tried to explain, the more lies unraveled, and I realized that our entire relationship had been built on deception. I remained firm about my decision to break up, which seemed to shock Daniel, as if he expected me to forgive him and move on, like nothing had happened. When he realized I was serious about ending things, Daniel became angry and threatening. He told me I would regret this decision and that I was throwing away something good over nothing. His final words before hanging up were chilling. "You do not know what you are doing, Rachel. You will be sorry." I immediately blocked his number on my phone, and social media changed the locks on my apartment and informed my family and close friends about the situation. Over the next several days, I began investigating other suspicious behavior I had noticed during our relationship. I went through old credit card statements that Daniel had left at my apartment and found multiple charges at expensive restaurants on dates that coincided with Sophia's Instagram posts. The evidence painted a clear picture of a months-long affair that had been carefully hidden behind a web of lies about work obligations and family commitments. I confided in my best friend Emma about everything that had happened. She helped me process the betrayal and supported me through the initial stages of grief and anger. We spent hours analyzing the relationship, identifying red flags I had missed, and patterns of manipulation I had not recognized at the time. Emma encouraged me to trust my instincts and reminded me that leaving Daniel was the right decision, even though it was painful. For 2 weeks, my life was blissfully drama-free. I focused on work, spent time with friends, and began the process of emotionally detaching from Daniel. I started therapy to help process the betrayal and learn how to rebuild my trust in future relationships. I was beginning to feel like myself again, like I was finally free from the confusion and anxiety that had been plaguing me for weeks. Then, on a Saturday evening, my sense of peace was completely shattered. I was attending a family barbecue at Marcus's house to celebrate his successful honeymoon in Italy. The whole family was there, including aunts, uncles, and cousins, enjoying good food and sharing stories about the wedding and honeymoon. The atmosphere was relaxed and joyful, and I was finally starting to feel normal again. Suddenly, Daniel appeared in the backyard uninvited and clearly intoxicated. The entire family fell silent as he stumbled through the gate, his clothes disheveled and his eyes wild with anger and desperation. Marcus immediately stood up, positioning himself protectively between Daniel and the rest of the family, while my father moved closer to where I was sitting. Daniel began shouting about how I had destroyed our relationship over nothing and demanding that I talk to him privately. His behavior was erratic and frightening, nothing like the charming man my family had met at the wedding. He was slurring his words and gesturing wildly, causing my younger cousins to move away from the area. The neighbors began looking over their fences, drawn by the commotion, which added to the family's embarrassment and concern. Despite my family's protests, I agreed to speak with Daniel privately for a few minutes, hoping to de-escalate the situation and get him to leave peacefully. We moved to a corner of the yard where we could talk without the entire family overhearing, though Marcus and my father remained close enough to intervene if necessary. Daniel's attempted manipulation was textbook emotional abuse. He broke down in fake tears, claiming that Sophia meant nothing to him and that he had made a terrible mistake. He promised he would change, that he would earn back my trust, and that we could work through this problem together. When I remained unmoved by his performance, explaining calmly that our relationship was definitively over, Daniel's demeanor changed completely. In a desperate and violent move, Daniel suddenly grabbed me and tried to force a kiss. I pushed him away as hard as I could and screamed for help, which brought Marcus and several male cousins running immediately. They physically restrained Daniel while someone called the police, and the situation became a complete spectacle in front of my extended family and the neighbors. Daniel continued his outburst, even while being held back, cursing at me and making threats about future revenge. He was screaming about how I would regret leaving him and that he would make sure I paid for humiliating him. The police arrived within minutes and escorted Daniel off the property with an official trespass warning threatening arrest if he returned or attempted to contact me again. The immediate aftermath of Daniel's violent outburst was both traumatic and cathartic. For the first time since this whole situation began, my family fully understood the scope of what I had been dealing with. They rallied around me with support and protection, making sure I was never alone and helping me take practical steps to ensure my safety. We filed a police report documenting Daniel's harassment and trespassing, creating an official paper trail in case his behavior escalated further. That evening, surrounded by my family's love and support, I finally allowed myself to cry and process everything that had happened publicly. The relief of not having to pretend anymore, of not having to protect everyone else from my pain, was overwhelming. Marcus felt terrible that his wedding had become connected to this drama, but I assured him that none of this was his fault and that I was grateful the truth had come out when it did. Over the following weeks, I began serious therapy to address not just the betrayal and cheating, but the patterns of emotional manipulation and control that I had not recognized during the relationship. My therapist helped me understand that Daniel's behavior was textbook emotional abuse designed to keep me off balance and questioning my own perceptions. Learning to trust my instincts again became a crucial part of my healing process. I also joined a support group for women who had experienced similar situations. Hearing other stories of betrayal, manipulation, and recovery helped me realize that I was not alone and that recovery was not only possible, but inevitable with the right support system. These women became some of my closest friends, creating a network of understanding and empowerment that continues to enrich my life. The healing journey was not linear or easy. There were days when I questioned whether I had overreacted, moments when I missed the good times with Daniel and wondered if I should have given him another chance. But my support system, both professional and personal, helped me stay focused on the reality of what had happened and the importance of maintaining my boundaries and self-respect. 6 months after the wedding incident, I was promoted at work to a senior management position that I had been working toward for years. I realized that during my relationship with Daniel, I had been so focused on his needs and our future together that I had neglected my own career ambitions. The energy I had been putting into managing his moods and making excuses for his behavior was now channeled into professional growth and personal development. I also discovered new hobbies and interests that I had abandoned during the relationship. I started rock climbing, joined a book club, and began taking Spanish lessons. Each new activity represented a piece of myself that I was reclaiming, a reminder of who I had been before Daniel and who I was becoming afterward. The independence felt intoxicating after months of having my schedule and decisions influenced by someone else's demands and manipulations. My relationships with family and friends deepened significantly during this time. The shared experience of dealing with Daniel's behavior had brought my family closer together, and they now understood the importance of checking in on each other's well-being regularly. My friendships became more honest and supportive as I learned to be vulnerable about my struggles instead of pretending everything was perfect. Most importantly, I developed a completely new relationship with myself, one based on self-respect and clear boundaries. I learned to recognize red flags in all relationships, not just romantic ones, and to trust my instincts when something felt off. I practiced saying no without explanation or apology, setting boundaries that protected my time, energy, and emotional well-being. Looking back now, I can honestly say that while the betrayal was devastating at the time, it ultimately led me to a much healthier and happier life. I learned that I am strong enough to handle difficult situations on my own, that my family and friends will support me through anything, and that I deserve a relationship built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. The experience taught me to value actions over words and to never settle for someone who makes me question my worth or reality. Daniel never contacted me again after the police incident, which I took as confirmation that he was more interested in control than genuine love. Through mutual friends, I heard that he and Sophia broke up within a few months, suggesting that their relationship was built more on secrecy and excitement than real compatibility. I felt no satisfaction in this news, only gratitude that I was no longer part of that toxic dynamic. Today, I am in a healthy relationship with someone who respects my boundaries, communicates honestly about difficult topics, and supports my individual growth and ambitions. The contrast between my current relationship and what I experienced with Daniel is like night and day, and it serves as a constant reminder of how much I have grown and what I now know I deserve. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing that ever happens to you. My brother's wedding will always be associated with this painful chapter of my life, but it also represents the moment when I chose to prioritize my self-respect over convenience, truth over comfort, and my future happiness over temporary security. That choice changed everything. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between what felt safe and what you knew was right? Share your story in the comments below, because I would love to hear how you navigated challenging situations in your own life. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more real stories about love betrayal and finding strength you never knew you had. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve better than manipulation and lies. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth is never determined by someone else's inability to see it. You are stronger than you know, and better days are always ahead when you choose yourself.